As the empire's princess, she was scorned and shunned by all for having no magic. Not only did she lose her right to the throne, but her illegitimate older sister stole all of her love. Having lost everything, she slowly descended into darkness, her personality growing more perverse and tyrannical. In her final struggle for power, she poisoned her own father, an act that also sealed her fate. The princess who had committed this grave sin was sent to the guillotine. The order was given, the blade slowly rose, and then it fell. The platform was instantly stained crimson. Her Xiao Yao was the only daughter of the Xiao family, one of the 4 great clans. But she was frail and sickly from a young age, needing monthly hospital treatments. Today was the day of her surgery, but when she opened her eyes, she had been transported into a novel she hadn't even finished. Reincarnated as the story's villainess, Princess Alfalo. Dazed and confused, the hero looked around at the unfamiliar surroundings. Glancing down, she saw a pair of small, soft, pale hands and could hardly believe her eyes. She shakily climbed out of bed and toddled over to a nearby mirror, only to see a completely unfamiliar face. Turning left and right, unable to accept reality, Xiaoya's legs gave out. She collapsed to the floor and let out a scream. Hearing the shriek, maids rushed in. Seeing the princess on the floor, they anxiously checked her over, relieved to find she was unharmed. Thank goodness you're all right, if Lord Neil found out. At the sound of the familiar name, Xiao quickly cut the maid off. Who did you just say? The maid replied timidly, Lord Taminil. Still in disbelief, she asked who she was. The maid's answer confirmed her fears. Your Highness, you are the one and only princess of the Lefest Empire, Princess Alfalo. She had really been transported into the novel, reincarnated as the villainess with the tragic ending. Just as Alfalo was trying to process this new reality, the door opened with the sound of steady footsteps. A tall, imposing figure in a cloak walked in. Alf stared with wide eyes, wondering, could this be my father? The emperor in the novel was named Erota, the youngest emperor in the history of the Lefest Empire. Since taking the throne at 19, he had led his armies to conquer nation after nation, doubling the size of his territory in just 10 years. Under his rule, the empire reached an unprecedented era of prosperity. Yet this powerful monster of a man possessed a face as beautiful as a god's. Alfal met his gaze and felt a terrifying aura. A single look from him was enough to make anyone tremble. No wonder the maids were so afraid of him. Erdoy asked the maids what had happened. Learning that a hostage had upset the princess, he turned to Alfalo. Alfalo braced herself, expecting to be punished for the original princess's tantrum. Instead, a large hand gently rested on her head. Are you heard anywhere? He asked, his voice surprisingly soft and kind. Hearing her father's gentle question, Alfalo quickly shook her head. His expression was warm and kind toward her. But when he turned away, his face instantly darkened. A mere hostage dares to upset the princess, he snarled, ordering the hostage to be brought before him. Ardava waved a hand, and a man holding a magic staff stepped forward to heal Alfalo. Her body floated gently into the air. So this is magic. What an amazing feeling. After the healing was complete, Ardua walked over to her. I'm glad you're okay, he said, his voice still soft. The novel described Erdua as a cold-blooded, heartless tyrant, but seeing him now, he didn't seem so terrifying. Just then, guards dragged the hostage in, watching him get thrown roughly to the ground. Alfalo instinctively reached out to help him, before realizing her mistake and quickly pulling her hand back. So this was him, Prince Viddi of the CERN Lily Kingdom. Cursed for his naturally black hair and red eyes, he was considered a bad omen and sent to the Lefest Empire as a hostage at the age of 10. There he was demoted to a guard and endured endless humiliation. In the novel, he offended Alfalo at age 12 and was sent back to his kingdom. The fate of a banished hostage was easy to imagine. Right now, he was kneeling tremblingly before the towering emperor. When he turned and saw Alfalo standing to the side, he glared at her with the same hateful eyes described in the book. Startled, Alfo backed away. Before she could say anything, her father noticed the boy's glare and stepped in front of her. How dare a mere hostage look at my daughter like that? He declared that the boy's life would be the price for the princess's forgiveness. Seeing the defiant look on the boy's face, he added that the blood of the entire Sereni kingdom and all its people would be even more satisfying. He then let out a scornful laugh. This is the price for angering me. Alfo was stunned. Just for looking at me, he angered this man. And for something so trivial, an entire nation is sentenced to death. There was no fairness, no human rights. The law was whatever the ruling class said it was, and no one dared to defy the monarch's tyranny. What kind of world was this? If this boy died because of her, if a war broke out because of her, Alfalo clutched her clothes, wouldn't that make her just another one of these numb, cowardly people? No, she cried, gathering her courage and stepping in front of her father to plead for the boy. It was my fault. I was careless. It has nothing to do with him. The boy looked back in shock. Is she helping me? A month had passed since that incident, and Alfalo had slowly come to terms with her new life. Still, the memory of the emperor's expression that day sent a chill down her spine. Thankfully, he hadn't pursued the matter further. She couldn't believe she had dared to defy a tyrant in front of so many people. She'd almost thought her new life would be a short one. Alfalo wiped a bead of sweat from her brow and suddenly noticed a pair of eyes on her. Turning around, she saw Vidhi staring, unable to look away in time. Alfalo flashed him a smile, her big, beautiful eyes sparkling. But from Vid's perspective, she looked like a demon wielding a club with a wicked grin. He dropped to his knees with a grave expression, his face a mask of grim resolve. If this will ensure my people's safety, then let me make this one last contribution for them. Alfalo was completely bewildered. I don't know what you're thinking, but it's definitely not what I meant. Based on her observations, Alfo discovered that the original princess was even more vicious than the novel had described. Almost no one in the entire palace dared to speak to her, not even her personal maids. Alfal sighed. What kind of brat was the original owner of this body? To avoid her tragic end, Alfo was determined to change everything, starting with the people closest to her. She walked over to Vidhi and held out her hand. Vidhi squeezed his eyes shut. So, it's finally happening. But after waiting for a moment, nothing happened. He slowly opened his eyes to see a small, pale hand trying to pull him up. Get up, she said. Before Vidhi could react, Alfalo continued, I won't hit or yell at you anymore. I swear on my name as the princess of this empire. Seeing her firm, serious expression, Vidhi was stunned. He couldn't understand why the once arrogant and cruel princess had suddenly changed. Was this just another one of her tricks? Vidya stood up on his own, ignoring her outstretched hand. The atmosphere instantly became awkward and Alfalo slowly retracted her hand. Well, that's a truce, right? Sort of. Just then, a handsome and elegant man walked through the door, breaking the tension. From the maid's delighted greetings, she knew this was Tammy Neal. In the original novel, he was the only person who stayed by Alfal's side from beginning to end. He did everything she asked. And even when everyone else had fallen for the heroine, he remained loyal to Alfalo, willing to sacrifice his life for her. As Neil approached, with the glare at him, faint scent of gunpowder hanging in the air. Neil ignored Vidhi, walked to Alfalo and knelt on one knee. I have returned, Your Highness. Looking at the report Neil brought back, Alfal recalled the novel's heroine, Emma Glora Uros. Rumor had it she was the emperor's child with a wealthy merchant's daughter from his younger days. Shortly after Emma was born, the merchant's family met with tragedy, and young Emma disappeared. Even though the lost princess was raised as a commoner, her noble blood couldn't be hidden. After returning to the palace, Emma quickly became the beloved elder princess. Even the ice-cold emperor was melted by Emma's warm, sunny disposition. Everyone loved her except for Alfalo. As the empire's once only princess, she felt replaced by the heroine's arrival. Jealous that Emma had stolen her father's affection, she began to antagonize her at every turn. One was a kind and gentle heroine, the other a willful and arrogant villainess. The outcome was predictable. In the end, the prince and princess lived happily ever after, while the wicked witch died scorned by the world. Thinking about it, Alfalo shuddered. What a miserable ending. If I just stay far away from the heroine, I should be fine, right? But from Neil's perspective, Alfo's pretty little face was filled with worry and his expression instantly darkened. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Alfalo ask with an expectant look, "When can I meet my sister?" Neil was stunned by the sudden question. You aren't angry? Alfalo replied seriously that she would get along well with her sister. After all, who would be reckless enough to get on the heroine's bad side? The two of them were clearly not on the same page. After a moment of thought, Neil said darkly, "I understand what you mean, Your Highness." "No, you don't," Alfo said in a panic. "I didn't mean for you to do anything to her." But Neil hesitated. "If we don't make plans soon, you will." Alfo didn't understand what he meant. She glanced at Viddy and the maids beside her, and they all had strange expressions. Just then, Viddy let out a small scoff, catching her attention. "Why are you laughing?" We avoided her gaze, but seeing her persistent stare, he reluctantly told her, "You don't seem to know what's going to happen." After Viddy spoke, the atmosphere instantly grew heavy. "You are the emperor's daughter. From the moment you were born, you had to bear the responsibilities of royalty. If you can't be a winner who surpasses everyone else by a hundredfold, then your fate." Vid's fists, clenched at his sides, trembled uncontrollably. "It will be the same as mine." Alfalo stared at him blankly. He was right. Vidya hadn't done anything wrong. Just because of the natural color of his hair and eyes, he was branded with a curse, stripped of his right to the throne, and exiled to a foreign empire. For such a ridiculous reason, even a prince could meet with disaster. What about her? A powerless princess with no magic, seen as the shame of the empire. Seeing Alfalo's unease, Neil quickly stepped forward and swore he would never let something like that happen. But seeing the princess remain silent, he shot a glare at Viddy. The stare made Viddy break out in a cold sweat. He awkwardly tried to add something, but a now composed Alfal cut him off. "I'll prepare myself, but not in the way you're thinking." Because of her poor health in her past life, she had hoped to finally have a healthy body and live a peaceful life. But now she was in a country without a proper legal system where the smallest mistake could cost her her life. It seemed she was still not in control of her own destiny. Alfalo felt a pang of disappointment but quickly pulled herself together. She couldn't just give up. Even if she was reincarnated as a villainess in a tragic role, she would never accept that fate. No matter what, she had to change her miserable destiny. After 3 sleepless days and nights of hard work, Alfalo finally completed her villainous self-rescue plan. First, she had to study the country's history. But to be a proper princess, book knowledge wasn't enough. She also needed perfect etiquette. On top of that, dancing and horse riding were essential. The thought of it all made Alfalo want to give up. But to escape the tragic ending in the book, she forced herself to rally. Alright, let's start with the easiest part. Knowledge is always the most important thing. The novel mentioned that the emperor had hired tutors for her, but the original Alfal had no interest in studying. It wasn't too late to start now. She had to become better than everyone else. Next, Alfo started looking for a tutor. Herdy was too gentle to be a teacher. Neil had other duties. That only left with Vid's help. Alfo quickly caught up with her studies and even surpassed the original curriculum. Although Vid's attitude remained cold, he was a much more competent teacher than she had expected. As for etiquette, Neil hired the Duchess Cohn, a woman renowned throughout the empire for her elegance, to be her instructor. Now her etiquette was at least passable. But as a princess, there was still so much more to learn every day. After a long day of work, Alfalo's favorite part was eating all kinds of delicious food. In her previous life, her weak body meant she couldn't eat whatever she wanted. But the consequence of indulging without restraint was gaining weight. From that day on, a maid named Harry banned all sweets from Alphal's palace. Without her desserts, Alphalo lost all motivation. She tried to win over the young maid with her cuteness. Hardy's heart fluttered at the adorable display, and she instantly abandoned her principles, preparing a table full of sweets for Alphal. Alphal's eyes sparkled with joy. Sweets really were the best. Full and happy, Alpho noticed Vidhi, who was sitting across from her, staring out the window. She followed his gaze and saw several colorful kites floating in the sky. You want to go play? You're still a kid after all. She clapped her hands excitedly and decided they should all go to the garden to fly kites. Since the princess had to change into specific clothes for an outing, Vidya and Neil were sent outside. The two who couldn't stand each other huffed and turned away from one another. A short while later, Alphalo came out, a happy smile on her pretty face as she ran toward them. Both boys were stunned by her appearance. Vidya blushed when he noticed Alphalo staring at him. Annoyed, Neil stepped between them. I believe your highness wanted to fly a kite. I've already had the servants prepare them in the garden. Alphalo's eyes lit up and she happily ran towards the garden. As soon as her back was turned, the two rivals started glaring at each other again. Alpha's kite flew higher and higher, and she couldn't help but show off to everyone. Neil and Harry didn't hold back their praises, and Alphalo was feeling proud of herself. I'm amazing. This was her first time flying a kite, and she never knew running happily under the sun felt so good. But in a moment of distraction, her kite was overtaken by Vitty's. Neil's face darkened. How dare he surpass the princess? He sneakily let out more string, knocking Vid's kite to the side, then shot Vidhi a taunting look. The air was thick with tension. Seeing their childish behavior, Alphalo couldn't help but laugh. She never thought the aloof and heartless Neil from the novel had such an adorable side. Well, if that's how it is, I can't back down either. Ignoring the two bickering beside her, Alpho focused on flying her kite. Suddenly, with a snap, the princess's kite string broke and the kite began to fall. Harry offered to go get it, but Alpho stopped her. You guys keep playing. I'll go get it myself. Before anyone could object, she dashed off in the direction of the fallen kite. She pushed aside some bushes, searching around. Suddenly, her eyes lit up as she spotted the kite on the roof of a pavilion. She ran over excitedly, not expecting to find a girl sitting inside. Alphalo was confused. This was a palace built specifically for her by the emperor. Besides her servants and the emperor himself, no one was ever allowed in. Alpho studied the girl carefully. That familiar back? Could it be? It felt like a bolt from the blue. This was the novel's heroine, Emma Gloros. According to the plot, she wasn't supposed to meet her until the banquet 6 months from now. Why was this happening so early? I'm not ready for this. Alo shook her head. Of the 36 stratagems, fleeing is the best. She decided to slip away, but fate seemed to have other plans. With a crack, she stepped on a dry branch. Alphalo froze, her face grim. Well, I'm screwed. As expected, a voice came from behind her. Hello. Alphalo turned around stiffly. The girl before her was truly stunning. Her beautiful golden hair fluttered in the wind like sunlight, and her eyes were the same as the emperor's. So, this was the empire's long-lost elder princess from the novel? Why was she here now? Where did the plot go wrong? Is something wrong, Your Highness? The girl's voice snapped Alphalo back to reality. She clutched the corner of her dress and forced a smile. It's nothing. I was just wondering why you're here. Emma looked pleasantly surprised. You know who I am, Your Highness? Alpha looked directly into her eyes, eyes that only members of the royal family possessed. Realizing this, Emma explained that she had seen the beautiful flowers and decided to pick some to arrange as a gift for their first meeting. Watching Emma's smiling face, Alpha understood why. Everyone in the novel liked her. Even she was starting to want to be friends with her. Just then, Neil's voice came from behind them, using the princess's flowers to give to the princess. What a fine gift, Miss Emma. Neither of them had time to react to Neil's voice before Vidya also emerged from the side. He immediately went into protective mode, questioning Emma sternly. This is a palace built by His Majesty for the princess. No one is allowed to enter without permission. What is your purpose for trespassing? Emma was taken aback, but quickly explained, I'm sorry, I didn't know this was the princess's palace. I just saw that the flowers here were beautiful and wanted to pick some as a gift for her. Emma's tone suddenly became sad. His Majesty gave me permission to move freely about the palace, so I assumed I could come here as well. Since Emma hadn't been formally introduced yet, she couldn't call the emperor father, a princess who grew up in the slums, constantly bullied. It was actually quite pitiful when you thought about it. Just then, someone walked over. What are you doing here? Alfal turned and saw the emperor approaching. Surprised? What's he doing here? Just then, Herdy peeked out from behind the emperor. Your Highness, we finally found you, she said, jogging over to Alfalo. Did you find your kite? Alfal then remembered why she was there in the first place and pointed to the kite still stuck on the pavilion roof. She turned back to see the emperor standing in front of Emma and got excited. In the novel, this was the famous scene where the heroine meets the emperor. She practically got out her popcorn ready for the show, but the two just stared at each other in silence. How was the plot supposed to advance like this? Just as Emma was about to call him father, Alfalo, holding a slice of watermelon, looked on with anticipation. But to her surprise, her father's expression was ice cold. Emma flinched and quickly corrected herself, calling him Your Majesty. I told you to stay in your palace and study during this time. Emma lowered her head. I am very sorry. Then her father walked right past Emma and ordered a guard to take her back. Emma looked like she wanted to say something, but then she saw the same man who had been so cold to her crouch down in front of Alfalo, telling her not to worry. He then took Alfal's hand and prepared to leave. As he turned, he said coldly to Emma, From now on, do not appear before the princess without my permission. Emma nodded, saying she understood. Al glanced back at Emma, who was still standing there, and felt a strange sense of sadness. Alfalo looked at the flowers Emma had sent over a few days ago, feeling a bit puzzled. Is she trying to get on my good side? But why? Unable to figure it out, she frustratedly pushed aside the papers in front of her. She glanced at an invitation lying on the table. In a few days, the lavish banquet from the novel would take place. It was the event that started everything, where Emma would be formally introduced to everyone, showered with praise, and become the empire's elder princess. And she would be ignored, becoming the person everyone hated out of jealousy and resentment. At that thought, Alfalo shot to her feet. Although her meeting with Emma happened earlier than expected, it wouldn't interfere with her plan. Most of the items on her checklist were complete. Only dancing remained. To save her own skin, she had to change how people saw her. She went to the garden to find Neil to teach her how to dance, but he was nowhere to be found. Harry told her Neil had gone out for the day. Disappointed, Alfalo sighed, guessing she wouldn't be able to practice dancing today. Just then, Harry saw Viddi passing by and suggested to Alfalo, if you want to practice dancing, there's another option. She then smiled and waved at Viddi. Viddi saw Herdy's friendly smile and felt a sense of foreboding. Even from a distance, Alfalo couldn't believe Herdy was suggesting Viddi. But he was once a prince and would definitely know how to dance. He was just a guard here now. Viddi clenched his fists, sighed, and walked over to invite Alpha. Shall we begin, Your Highness? His sudden invitation surprised Alfalo, and she felt a strange nervousness. But she took his hand and they began to dance. The dance style was similar to the waltz from her past life, and she had been pretty good at it. It seemed dancing wouldn't be a problem. As she thought, she noticed Vid's black hair and red eyes. A character like that was either an important side character or the final boss. How could he have been written out of the story after just one chapter? Herdy had mentioned that in his country, Viddi was seen as an ill omen, black hair and red eyes. It reminded her of the vampires from novels in her past life. Lost in thought, Alfalo nearly fell. Viddi quickly caught her, but she still accidentally stepped on his foot. Her face flushed red as she apologized. Just then, the main door was pushed open. Neil walked in and demanded, if you wanted to learn to dance, Your Highness, why didn't you wait for me to return? Alfalo said that Viddi was a good teacher too, At that moment, Vitty suddenly let go of her hand. Since Lord Neil has returned, I will take my leave. As he left, their eyes met, barks flying in the air. The tension was thick. Alfal, however, was just confused. In the morning, the sound of horse hooves clattered endlessly in the castle courtyard. As guests arrived for the banquet, Vidhi stood guard outside Alfo's door, his mind flashing through different images of her, causing him to blush and shake his head. Inside, however, Alfalo was still lazing in bed, unwilling to get up. The sun was shining brightly outside. It was the perfect weather for another nap. She rolled over and went back to sleep. Suddenly, the door was thrown open by Neil. Alfalo shot up in bed with a start. Neil glanced at the time and waved a hand behind him. A group of maids swarmed in, closing in on her. Alfalo shrank into a corner, trembling. What are you doing? From her perspective, they looked like a horde of demons with ugly claws ready to tear her apart. A flurry of activity followed inside the room. Vidhi was about to go in to check but was blocked by a smiling Hurdy. There's nothing I can do to help now. Just then a voice came from the side. They both turned to see Emma, already dressed in a pink gown. They bowed respectfully. I thought I saw you from a distance, Lord Vidhi. I didn't expect it to really be you, Emma said, suddenly stepping closer to him. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be helping Princess Alfalo? We silently took a few steps back to create some distance. Thank you for your concern, Princess Emma. I assume you have important matters to attend to since you are passing through here. Emma was about to speak when a guard beside her interrupted, whispering something in her ear. Emma then said she had to leave. Vidhi watched her go, lost in thought. Harry suddenly commented, It felt like she was coming on to you just now. Vidhi turned and walked away. Who knows, inside a resigned Alfalo was being dressed in a beautiful new gown. But due to her recent unrestrained feasting, she had clearly put on some weight and had to suck in her stomach just to get the dress buttoned. She let out a sigh of relief. Seeing Neil standing nearby, she quickly stammered that she was on a diet and hadn't been eating much, determined not to admit she'd secretly eaten an ice cream yesterday. Just then, Vidya and Harry walked in. Seeing the beautiful little princess, Hardy couldn't help but praise her. Your Highness, you look like a goddess. Alfalo Shilly lowered her head. You're exaggerating. Harry said if she didn't believe her, she could ask Vidhi. Alfalo peeked at Vidhi, who was staring at her intently. You look really beautiful, he murmured. Realizing what he'd said, he flushed and quickly turned away. Alfalo looked back expectantly. What do you think, Neil? Neil looked at her seriously, as if seeing someone else through her. You look like Alfalo was confused. Did Neil just say like? Like what? But he shook his head. Forget it. The upcoming ball was the most important thing right now. At the dazzling banquet, guests mingled endlessly. Everyone is here. Duke Eftovas is as handsome as ever. As he entered, people quickly gathered around him. I heard that the long-lost elder princess returned to the palace recently. The gossip caught his attention. The elder princess? Someone next to him replied, seeing his confused look. I heard she was brought to the palace right after that incident. The younger princess hasn't been seen since. The duke stroked his chin thoughtfully. Well, she has no one to blame but herself for being a useless waste. Maybe this banquet is to announce the elder princess's official status. The person turned to him expectantly. What do you think, Your Grace? The duke didn't give a direct answer, just a vague reply. At that moment, the emperor, dressed in his finest, turned to the girl beside him. Are you ready? Hearing her confirmation, he took her hand and walked towards the ballroom. Suddenly, an announcement rang out. His Majesty the Emperor and Her Highest the Princess have arrived. The crowd fell silent, looking toward the entrance with anticipation. They saw His Majesty Rotoros leading Princess Alfalo by the hand. The woman who had just been gossiping parled, he didn't bring the elder princess. The guests bowed in unison as murmurs spread through the hall. Everyone had expected him to enter with the illegitimate elder princess, but he was holding Alfalo's hand instead. However, a single glare from the imposing father instantly silenced the room. Alo looked at him in awe, as expected, of the emperor of the continent's greatest empire. One look is enough to scare everyone to death. Her father sensed her trembling and squeezed her hand, whispering, "Don't mind them." In the original novel, her father was a cold blooded and ruthless man. But he was incredibly gentle with his daughter. Even up to his death, he never once resented Alfal. How could she ever bring herself to harm such a good person? Alfo thought to herself, "In this life, let me be your daughter." Just then, her father formally announced the return of the long lost elder princess. At the same time, the music started and people began to dance and chat, the hall filled with lively conversation. Buffalo, however, sat bored in her seat, eating dessert. Even though she was a princess, her father had told her she didn't need to socialize with those people. Down below, Emma was laughing and talking with everyone, winning over many admirers. In contrast, Alfalo was high above them all, and everyone she saw quickly avoided her, their only impression of her being that of a spoiled, violent brat. How was she supposed to execute her reversal plan like this? Alfalo was still boredly eating a small cake. When a guard approached and whispered something in her father's ear, her father's expression changed. He turned to Alfalo and gently stroked her head. "Wait for me here. I'll be back soon." With that, he left the banquet. Alfo finished the last bite of her dessert. Finally, I can begin my reversal plan. Alf looked around searching for a target. She saw Emma surrounded by a crowd of people. Of course, she's the heroine. I definitely can't go over there. She turned to go in the other direction. At that moment, Emma noticed the empty throne and froze for a second, but was quickly pulled back into conversation by the people around her. Everywhere Alfalo went, people scattered. She didn't know if they were avoiding her because she was a princess or because she was a powerless villain. Alfalo finally found her target. She took a deep breath, composed herself, and prepared to greet the trio of ladies gracefully. But before she could even finish a sentence, all three of them had vanished. Alfalo stood there, frozen in awkward silence for a few seconds. It seemed that in this world, having no magic was no different from having a contagious disease. Even a princess would be ostracized without it. Living in such an environment, it was no wonder the original Alfalo turned out the way she did. Then she clenched her fists and rallied her spirits. If socializing wouldn't work, then dancing would have to. She quickly scanned the room for a suitable dance partner and suddenly spotted Viddi hiding in a corner. Viddi noticed her at the same time and quickly turned his head away. Although Alpha found it strange that Viddi was here, she quickly thought, well, there's a ready-made dance partner. Seeing Alfalo approaching with a wicked grin, Viddi bowed and quickly tried to leave. But she was determined, chasing after him until she finally caught him. Alfo curtsied gracefully. "May I have the honor of this dance?" she asked, her eyes full of hopeful charm. Viddi sighed in resignation but accepted. "The honor is all mine, Your Highness." As the beautiful music began, the two started to dance, instantly becoming the center of attention. "I never knew the princess could dance so well. She used to be terrible." "She's like a beautiful butterfly, every move filled with grace." Just then, her sister Emma noticed them and, not to be outdone, began to dance as well. The crowd murmured in admiration. The elder princess has only been back for a short time, yet she dances so beautifully. No wonder the younger princess is trying so hard. For a moment, the two pairs were the stars of the banquet, showing off their skills. In the middle of the dance, Alfalo quietly asked Viddi, "Why are you here?" Vidya replied that Neil had sent him. Alfalo was confused. "What did he send you to do?" Vidya recalled Neil's instructions. "Your only mission today is to protect the princess. If I find out you've laid a single finger on her." Neil had made a throat-slitting gesture with a sinister look on his face. Vidya shook his head, snapping out of the memory. He looked at the curious Alfalo and said, "No mission." Alfal sighed. "Is it another one of those protect me at all costs missions?" Vidya nodded. "Of course." Alfal thought to herself, "But it's a good thing Vidya is here. The plan is going smoothly and people's impressions of me are starting to change. It seems my comeback isn't far off." Just then, Alfalo noticed Emma nearby. Her beautiful steps and elegant movements made Alfalo sigh in admiration. As expected of the heroine, her dancing is incredible. You'd never guess she grew up in the slums. Alpho suddenly realized that she had arrived in this world around the same time Emma was brought back to the palace. That meant they had been learning to dance for the same amount of time. Watching Emma's graceful performance, Alfalo knew she had to work even harder. Just then, Vidhi noticed Alfalo's mood. Your Highness, you don't need to compare yourself to others. Alfalo looked at Vidhi, touched, but as she was lost in the moment, Vidhi suddenly realized something was wrong. Vidhi pulled Alfalo into his arms, dodging a falling Emma who crashed hard onto the floor. Held tightly by Vidhi, Alpha looked around, her face flushing red, confused about what had just happened. The crowd gasped and began to whisper among themselves. Vidhi looked coldly at Emma. Princess Emma, you should be more careful when you dance. You nearly crashed into the princess just now. His words caused an uproar. Did Princess Emma do that on purpose? If she can't dance well, why is she dancing at all? Hearing these comments, Emma lowered her head, looking lost. Just then, Alfalo stepped forward and offered a hand to help her up. Are you all right, sister? That must have hurt. The onlookers were surprised by her gesture, but Emma's knight suddenly swatted Alfalo's hand away. Your Highness doesn't need to pretend to be concerned. If you hadn't moved out of the way, Princess Emma wouldn't have fallen. Alfalo was speechless. Wow, what kind of ridiculous logic is that? If I didn't move, I would have been her cushion. Just then, Vidhi stepped in front of Alfalo and the two men faced off, the tension in the air palpable. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from behind them. It was the Emperor. The crowd bowed as he walked straight to Alfal. What happened? Alfo shook her head, saying it was nothing. But her father's gaze turned dark as he looked at Vidhi. Vidhi immediately knelt and explained the situation. However, Emma's knight twisted the story, blaming Alfalo. It was the princess who almost bumped into Princess Emma. Alfalo was floored. The nerve of this guy to lie like that. If I wasn't the one involved, I might have actually believed him. Her father turned to Emma. Is that so? Emma looked helpless. It was just an accident. It had nothing to do with my sister. Hearing such a manipulative, two-faced response, Alfalo froze, anxiously looking at her father. He's not going to believe her, is he? However, her father said darkly, if you can't dance, then don't. He was even prepared to end the banquet. Then he turned to Vidhi. You failed to protect the princess. This is your second offense. Vidhi knelt in silence as her father was about to punish him. Arfo quickly grabbed the hem of his clothes. If Vidya hadn't pulled me away in time, I would have been the one who got hit, she explained, then deployed her secret weapon, her cutest puppy dog eyes. They looked at each other for a moment and Alfalo's heart pounded. Is it not working? Finally, the emperor sighed and gave in. He announced that the banquet would continue, then picked up Alfalo and turned to leave. As they went, Alfal waved discreetly at Vidhi, signaling him to get away quickly. The emperor carried Alfalo to a quiet room and knelt in front of her, gently touching her cheek. Are you really okay with the banquet? Alfalo smiled brightly. I'm really fine. The emperor stroked her head. From now on, if you don't like these kinds of banquets, you don't have to attend any of them. Alfalo stared at her father, stunned. This was the first time anyone had ever told her that if she didn't like something, she didn't have to do it. Here, someone was willing to protect her, to tell her she didn't have to go to those annoying parties. Alfo smiled happily. Okay, father. The two of them then happily enjoyed dessert together in the room. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. A servant's voice came from outside. Your Majesty, Duke Vitovas requests an audience. The emperor was annoyed at having their sweet father-daughter time interrupted. He asked Alfo, do you want to see him? Alfalo remembered from the novel that Duke Vitovas was the ultimate winner, the one who helped the main characters ascend to the throne. She didn't want to get involved with such a calculating person. She looked at the emperor with pitiful eyes and pleaded silently. The emperor chuckled and ruffled her hair. The princess is unwell and needs to rest. She will see no one. Outside the door, the Duke and Emma heard the emperor's voice. Since the princess is unwell, we will visit another day. The Duke put his arm around Emma's shoulder. Let's go back. Emma clenched her fist resentfully but followed him in silence. The Duke watched the silent Emma, a smile playing on his lips. A few days later, Alfalo stared at an invitation on her desk, completely baffled. Her father thought she liked socializing and had arranged a tea party for her. Hearing Neil's confirmation, she wanted to scream. It must have been because she casually said, I don't mind making friends and I get along well with others. A few days ago, all she said was that she didn't mind making friends. Alpha flopped onto her back in despair. But then a thought struck her. Isn't this the perfect opportunity to change everyone's impression of me? Her father had taken her away from the last banquet early, so her plan was incomplete. She clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. This time I have to succeed. The day after confirming the tea party, the three of them went to the market to buy gifts. Alpha looked around excitedly. I'm finally out! It was a good thing she had the excuse of preparing gifts for the tea party. Otherwise, her father would never have let her leave the palace. Alpha suddenly remembered that when she had been asking her father for permission to go out, a servant had announced a visitor, and her father's expression had instantly become serious. He had then stroked her head and said, It seems I won't be able to go with you. Who could possibly make the emperor put her aside? She shook her head. Whatever, it has nothing to do with me. Time to shop. Just then Neil pointed to an item in a shop and asked for Alphal's opinion. She leaned in curiously and saw a ruby ornament in Neil's hand. It's beautiful. This would be a perfect gift for the tea party. Neil then declared grandly, We'll take them all. Before Alfalo could even react, the shopkeeper had already wrapped everything up with lightning speed. Suddenly Vid's voice came from behind them. We'll take all of these too. Alfalo turned around stiffly to see a mountain of goods piled in front of Viddi. The market vendors, sensing a golden opportunity, started hawking their wares. And those two idiots, Viddi and Neil, started a silent competition out of jealousy. Alfalo finally exploded. This is not the kind of shopping I had in mind. She then stormed off into the crowd and disappeared. Hiding in a corner, Alfal breathed a sigh of relief, having finally shaken the two of them. Just then a handkerchief was offered to her from the side. Are you all right? Alfalo turned to see a man in a hood had suddenly appeared beside her. When he lowered his hood, Alfalo froze. How can someone be this beautiful? Viddi and the others were handsome, but no one looked as ethereal as him. This must be what an angel looks like. Is something wrong? His question snapped her back to reality. She took the handkerchief and wiped the sweat from her forehead, secretly sizing him up. Someone like him seemed a lot like the male lead from the novel The Son of the Holy Temple. Wait a minute. Could this actually be the male lead? Alfal clutched the handkerchief, trying to act calm. Thank you for the handkerchief. I'll wash it and return it to you. The young man smiled and pointed to a small house ahead. I live there. Feel free to come find me if you need anything. Alfalo followed his gaze and saw a sign that read, House of Divination. Are you a fortune teller? She asked curiously. The young man thought for a moment. Technically, I'm more of an astrologer. I observe the stars. Seeing her curious and surprised expression, he invited her in. If you're interested, would you like to give it a try? Alfal followed him into the house where he took out a deep blue crystal ball to read her fortune. She watched, both nervous and excited. The young man spread his hands, silently chanted an incantation, and the crystal ball began to glow. Both of them stared at it seriously. Suddenly, the crystal ball emitted several intense flashes of light, making popping sounds as cracks appeared on its surface. Alfalo turned away, shielding her eyes. With a final crash, the crystal ball shattered completely. Staring at the broken pieces, Alfalo clasped her hands, feeling anxious. Does this mean I'm in for some terrible misfortune? The crystal ball shattered. How bad can it be? But the young man looked at the remains of the crystal ball with a knowing smile. You are very interesting. Alfal was confused. What does that mean? Am I not going to die? The young man explained, Someone has placed a very powerful restriction on you. The crystal ball broke because the person who placed the restriction won't allow me to read your fortune. Alfalo pressed him anxiously. Who placed this restriction on me? Why would they do that? The young man shook his head, saying he didn't know. Perhaps someone did it to protect you. He then smiled faintly. Or maybe it was for some other reason, I can't say for sure. Alfalo looked disappointed. She had just been curious and wanted to have some fun, but now she had discovered this restriction on her. Just then, the young man leaned in close. Alfalo flinched and held up her hands to create some space. What is it? The young man looked at her seriously. This restriction on you feels very familiar. Alfalo awkwardly turned her head away as his face got closer and closer. She panicked. Help! Someone please save me. Just as the young man's hand was about to touch her face, a loud bang came from the doorway. They both turned to see Vidhi standing there, his face dark. Get your filthy hands off her, he snarled. Alfal saw Vidhi like a savior and ran over to him. How did you find me? Vi looked apologetic. I'm sorry, Your Highness. I failed to protect you. Alfalo quickly waved her hand, telling him it wasn't his fault. She was the one who ran off. If she hadn't, she wouldn't have run into this weirdo. Vi then stood protectively in front of her and demanded, Who are you? The young man gave a small laugh, looking completely innocent. Don't misunderstand. I am just an ordinary astrologer from this house of divination. Alfalo thought, Yeah, right, ordinary. Fiti said apologetically, I'm sorry to have disturbed you. Thank you for taking care of my lady. Then he suddenly took Alpha's hand, but I need to take her back now. The young man chuckled and walked over to Alfalo. I apologize if my actions startled you, my lady. He then produced a necklace from behind his back. As a token of my apology, please accept this lucky necklace. Alfal quickly refused, saying she didn't need it. Vidhi then led her away. As they left, the young man behind them smirked. You'll lead it. At the same time, the necklace inside the box vanished into thin air. As they walked through the market, Alpha looked at Viddi's silent, grim face and quietly called his name. Viddi looked upset. I'm sorry, Your Highness. As your guard, I failed to protect you. Alpha quickly waved her hands. No, you arrived just in time. Just then, Neil ran over from a distance. Alpha suddenly thought about what the young man had said about the restriction. What did it all mean? She was about to ask Neil, but seeing the crowded street, she changed her mind. I'll ask him when we get back. She took a few steps forward, then turned to look at Viddi, her hand still tingling where he had held it. Strange. Why do I feel a little disappointed? That night, exhausted from the day, Alpha checked the gifts for the next day's party before going to bed. As she was sleeping soundly, a figure suddenly appeared at her bedside. The sudden light woke her up. She opened her eyes to see a beautiful woman floating by her bed, softly calling her name. Alfalo stared at the woman in shock and quickly scrambled backward. Who are you? Trespassing in the princess's chambers at night is a capital offense. Just then the woman reached out to her. Alpo flinched back in fear, bumping her head. This person managed to get past the guards and into my room. She can't be ordinary. Is it an assassin? Alfal squeezed her eyes shut, bracing for the end. But instead, the woman gently caressed her cheek. Alfalo looked at her in confusion. Who are you? Suddenly, a mysterious force separated them. Alpha reached out to grab the woman, but she vanished into thin air. Just then, Neil, hearing Alpha's voice from outside, pushed the door open. Alpha stared at the spot where the woman had disappeared, bewildered. Was that some kind of magic? Neil softly asked Alpha. Did you have a nightmare? Alfalo waved her hand. I'm fine. You should go get some sleep, Neil. But Neil offered to stand watch for her, saying she could call him if she had another nightmare. The next day, due to the mysterious woman's sudden appearance, Alpha had spent the whole night thinking and hadn't gotten much sleep. She was yawning constantly. She turned to look at Neil behind her. They had both been up all night, but Neil, who had stood guard for her, looked completely fine. How was he still so energetic? Before she could figure it out, a maid announced that the party was ready. When she arrived at the party venue, Emma's side was filled with laughter and conversation, while her own table was completely empty. It seems my performance at the ball had no effect at all. Just then, a voice beside her asked, May I sit here? Alpha looked up in pleasant surprise. Someone finally came over. The guests across from them, however, looked on in shock and apprehension. Alpha quietly asked the girl, "Aren't you afraid of me?" The girl looked at her puzzled. "Why should I be?" Alpha thought for a moment. "Because everyone says I'm spoiled, willful, and arrogant." But the girl asked, "Well, are you?" Alfalo shook her head. "Then that's that." Alfar clenched her hands. "But I don't have any magic," she said, looking at the girl nervously. The girl, however, looked completely unfazed. "So what?" Alpha looked at her, touched besides Viddy and the others. This was the first person in this world who didn't care whether she had magic or not. Across from them, Emma watched the two of them laughing and talking, and for a moment, her expression darkened. Emma looked up, a bright smile on her face. "Now that the last guest has arrived, shall we begin the tea party?" Alfal finally realized what was happening. Looking at Emma, she thought, why does it feel like Emma is the host of this party? But she wasn't going to give up. At least one person believed in her now. The party officially began. Alfal gestured to Harry, and maids brought out gifts. "These are presents for all of you. Thank you for coming to my tea party." The guests looked at each other, surprised that the arrogant princess would prepare gifts for them. Alfal quickly added, "You can open them." But no one moved. Alfo felt a pang of disappointment. They won't even accept my gifts. Just then, the girl beside Alpha Blair opened her box and was surprised to see a long whip inside. Alfal explained, "The daughter of General A's family has been training in martial arts since she was young and has a fondness for whips. I thought this Rubiadon whip would be perfect for Miss Blair." Someone from the side scoffed. "Who gives such a crude thing as a gift to a noble lady?" But Blair cleared her throat and said, enunciating each word, "I love it." Then the other guests thus started opening their boxes and were amazed to find gifts that were exactly what they wanted. Alfalo breathed a sigh of relief. It seems everyone likes them. All that research into their preferences paid off. Erasing everyone's prejudice against her was just around the corner. Just then, Alfalo noticed that Emma hadn't opened her gift yet. "Aren't you going to open it, sister?" Emma just smiled. "There's no need. A gift from you is sure to be wonderful." Alfalo watched the chatting guests and couldn't help but think, being around these ladies makes me feel more elegant. Just then, one of the girls holding the book Alfo had given her approached and asked, "Have you read this book too, Your Highness?" Alfalo froze. The girl, however, continued excitedly, "I can't believe you've even read this book." Alfalo quickly waved her hands. "No, I haven't. Don't say that," she answered awkwardly, admitting she hadn't actually read it. Just then, Blair came to her rescue. "The princess is only 12. She has just started studying introductory books." Al looked at her gratefully. "Yes, exactly." The girl apologized, but her next question was still about books. Alfal stared at her stiffly. Is this girl a bookworm or what? Soon, everyone was excitedly discussing the contents of the books, and Alpha couldn't get a word in. She had been so focused on learning noble etiquette recently that she had neglected the fact that a real princess needed knowledge. She couldn't just be a pretty face with an empty head. To become a proper imperial princess, to shed the title of useless, she had to learn everything a princess should know. Only then could she truly control her own destiny. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, Alfalo was 14. Today was her 14th birthday banquet. At the lively and magnificent party, guests crowded around to give her their gifts. Overwhelmed by the crowd, Alfalo was struggling to keep up. Just then, Emma linked arms with her. "The ball is starting. You promised me the first dance." As the music began, the two of them walked to the dance floor and began to dance. The crowd watched in awe. "I can't believe the two princesses are dancing together. I was hoping to ask the princess to dance." Alfo felt a little helpless. She had already heard at least 6 people say they wanted to ask her to dance. It was a good thing she had cleverly chosen to dance with Emma. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known how to turn them all down. After the dance, they smiled at each other. Just then, a round of applause came from the side. The two princesses dancing is truly a sight to behold. Emma curtsied gracefully. "Duke Vitivas, it's a pleasure to see you." Hearing the name Alfo, remembered from the novel that Duke Vitavivas Ramrose was the emperor's younger brother, a gentle and charming man. In the novel, he held the main characters multiple times and was also the one who caught Alfal trying to poison the emperor, sending her to her execution. Alf clenched her fists, thinking, I'm behaving myself now. I shouldn't be sent to the executioner's block again, right? Watching the two of them chat, she suddenly remembered that the Duke was the one who had brought Emma back. Emma loved the book you sent the other day, Your Grace, but it was a bit difficult. I'm still finding it a little hard to read. The Duke smiled faintly. That's all right. Princess Emma can take her time studying it. Emma bit her lip, lowered her eyes, and quietly agreed. Alfal watched them, puzzled. Why does it feel like they're speaking in code? Just then the Duke bowed to leave, but after a few steps, he turned back to Alfalo. Your gift has been sent to your room, Your Highness. I'm sure you will like it very much. Al thanked him politely and breathed a sigh of relief. He's finally gone. Talking to him is exhausting. That night, Alfalo lay tiredly on her bed. Neil, who was beside her, reminded her that she hadn't opened her gifts yet. Alfo sighed and called for Vidya and Herdy. Let's open them together. Harry unwrapped a gemstone. Vidya recognized it as a holy stone from the church. Neil checked the list. It's from Duke Vidivos. Alfo looked at the holy stone confused. What does he mean by sending me this? Neil recalled hearing that when the Duke found Princess Emma, the Emperor offered him a reward. But he refused everything except for a holy stone from the church. Alfalo thought about it for a moment, then gave up. Well, if I can't figure it out, I'll just put it away for now. The next day, as Alfalo was writing thank you letters for her gifts, a drawer suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Alfal opened the drawer to find the holy stone glowing brightly. At the same time, a bookshelf also began to glow. Alfo went over and moved the books aside, revealing a hidden indentation. Looking at the holy stone in her hand, she decided to place it in the slot. The stone instantly flared with a blinding light, and Alfalo quickly turned away, shielding her eyes. The bookshelf began to shake and then opened to reveal a secret passage. Surprised, Alfo composed herself and slowly walked into the passage. Deep inside, she saw a pattern on a door that felt strangely familiar. She pushed the door open to find what looked like an ordinary library. Alfal picked up a book from the table and saw that it was about theology. Most humans in this world were born with either magic or divine power, distinguished by their strength. Divine power was relatively rare. Nobles and royals, due to their bloodlines, mostly possessed extremely strong magic. Those with magic were called mages and warriors, while those with divine power would study and take exams to enter the church and become priests. Alpha looked around and saw that most of the items here were related to theology. Did this have something to do with the church? Just then, Alfalo noticed a sparkling stone on the table and curiously picked it up. The stone suddenly emitted a dazzling light, and from within the light, the mysterious woman who had appeared by her bed emerged. Alo stared at her blankly. So, this was a mother who had passed away 10 years ago. She was as beautiful as an angel. She gently caressed Alfal's cheek. Happy birthday, my child. Alfal stood frozen, tears welling up in her eyes, unable to believe it was real. She reached out to touch her, but her hand passed right through her body. Her mother told her, "This is just an image I preserved with my divine power." Alpha lowered her head sadly. I thought. Her mother gently stroked her head and comforted her. Don't be sad, my child. The fact that you found this place means you have turned 14. At the same time, her mother revealed the secret that had been hidden within her for 14 years. She learned from her mother that she had once been the saints of the church. Before Alfalo was even born, her mother had sensed powerful magic fluctuations and a faint divine aura from within her womb. Alfalo was destined to be the first person on the continent to possess both magic and divine power. But such a unique ability would inevitably bring countless dangers. So her mother had forcibly sealed her divine power, leaving behind these books and treasures. Only when she turned 14 could she open the secret room and master her divine power to protect herself. So she wasn't without magic. In fact, her power was quite strong. She wasn't the useless princess everyone called her. Alfal suddenly remembered the restriction the fortune teller had mentioned. Could that have been her mother's seal? Troubled, Alfalo tossed and turned in her bed. She didn't know how to break the seal and could only strengthen herself through constant study, hoping to break through it eventually. Meanwhile, in front of the towering holy temple, a man in a hood spoke softly to the person behind him. Do not disappoint our master. The young man behind him looked up. It was the same astrologer Alfalo had met before. In the morning, Alfo ate her breakfast distractedly. She had spent the last few days searching the entire secret library, but still couldn't find a way to break the seal. She sighed in frustration. Just then, her father suddenly announced that the next day she and Emma would be attending the Imperial Academy together. Alf looked up in surprise. So soon? Has the plot already reached this point? In her room, Neil and Harry were trying to pack up nearly everything she owned. Alfalo felt helpless. You really don't need to pack so much. Neil and Harry replied in unison. Your Highness's luggage must be fully prepared. We can't have you suffering while you're away. Alfalo sighed. She looked at Widdy, who was standing nearby, remembering that he would be accompanying her to the academy as her guard. Is that his luggage? Widdy, however, just lifted the sword at his side, saying that was all he needed. Alfalo was speechless. How is that considered luggage? She then pointed to several trunks on the floor, declaring them to be Witty's. Neil was a bit annoyed. If your Highness wants to pack his luggage, I can do it. There's no need for you to do it yourself. But Alfalo didn't care. It's no trouble. Taking care of those around me is also a princess's duty. Widdy was stunned by her words, then blushed slightly and thanked her. Alfal smiled. It's nothing. The next day, the group was waiting at the entrance. Alfal quietly asked Emma, Aren't we going to the academy? Why haven't we left yet? Emma explained that the church had said they would give the princesses a blessing for their journey and they were waiting for them to arrive. Just then, a group of people in blue robes approached. They were the envoys from the church. The man at the front removed his hood. It's been a while the two princesses have grown so tall. Alfalo looked at him confused. Have I met him before? Just then Emma, who was beside her, gently tugged on her clothes. Alfal snapped back to reality and curtsied. The man looked hurt. It's been so long. Princess Alfalo has almost forgotten me. Alfal was speechless. I was only 12 when I got here. I haven't seen you in 2 years, and the novel never even mentioned you. How was I supposed to know who you are? Just then, the emperor stepped forward and said they could begin. The Pope took his staff and walked over to Alfo. Please close your eyes, Your Highness. He softly chanted a blessing, and the staff emitted a golden light, forming a magic circle above her head. But suddenly, Alfo felt a sharp jolt in her heart and stumbled back in fear. What was that? The Pope lowered his staff and asked Alfalo, Are you feeling unwell? Alfala shook her head, saying she was fine. Just then, the Duke stepped forward. The princess's magic is likely too weak, so she may be having trouble withstanding the divine blessing, causing some discomfort. The emperor stepped forward and put his hands on Alfo's shoulders, his voice ice cold. Is this what your holy temple calls a blessing? Sensing the tense atmosphere, Alfal gently tugged on her father's sleeve. I'm fine. It's probably just as the Duke said. My constitution is just too weak. Hearing her words, her father's expression softened and he sighed. Is the holy temple's so-called blessing finished? After getting a confirmation, he turned to Alfalo and Emma. In that case, you may depart. Just then the Pope announced, as a token of my apology, I would like to send the Holy Son to accompany the princesses to the academy to ensure their safety. Hearing the words Holy Son, Alfalo was surprised. Can't be the male lead Piglet, can it? He looked exactly like that astrologer. When the Holy Son introduced himself, Alfalo's fears were confirmed. It really was the male lead from the novel. Oh no, the male lead has appeared. Doesn't that mean my death is just around the corner? But the emperor said, Excellent! Alfal wanted to cry. In the carriage, Alfo stared out the window, lost in thought. It was finally quiet. Thank goodness she had managed to stop her father from sending a whole squadron of knights with them. The social embarrassment would have been unbearable. Emma saw right through her. You refused the knights because you didn't want them watching over you, right? Alfalo leaned lazily against Emma. If they were here, I'd have to maintain my princess like decorum. With just you guys, I can relax a little. She looked at the holy sun sitting across from them and suddenly had an idea. Sir Holy Knight, do you know of a place called the House of Divination? Alfal watched him nervously, but the Holy Knight just asked, Why do you ask Princess Alfal? Alfal explained, You look a lot like someone I once met at the House of Divination. The novel had a lot of descriptions of this male lead. As the son of the Holy Temple, Paglet was second only to the Pope. The people of the Holy Temple said he was cold and emotionless, like a distant god. But the person she had met that day was gentle and ethereal. Although he gave her a bad feeling in the end, their personalities were completely different. Paglet thought for a moment. Was the person you're referring to an astrologer? Alphal's eyes widened in surprise. How did you know? Just then Emma cut in, glancing worriedly at Alfalo. It's just a guess, Your Highness. Don't overthink it. There are many people who look alike. It's not that surprising. Alfalo could only force a smile. All right, maybe I was just overthinking it. She looked between Emma and Paglet, thinking, why does it feel like these two know each other? Is it just my imagination? Soon, just as Alfalo was about to doze off, they finally arrived at the teleportation point for the academy. When they got to the platform, Alfo was shocked by the massive crowd. Why are there so many people? Are we going to have to wait in line forever? Just then, Vidhi reminded her that the royal family had their own dedicated teleportation circle. Alfo then remembered that being royalty had its perks. It felt good to be rich and powerful. The teleportation circle activated, and with a flash of golden light, the four of them vanished. When Alfalo opened her eyes, a grand and magnificent building stood before her. This was Inastain Academy. Alfal stared at the building in awe. Suddenly, an unfriendly voice came from behind. Well, what have we here? A couple of country bumpkins? Vidya turned around, his face dark, as a red-haired young man continued to mock them. This isn't a place for you, Hicks. The four of them glanced at him but decided to ignore him and walk toward the academy. The young man's face soured like he had just punched a pillow. Just then he noticed Vidhi walking beside Alfalo. Isn't that Vidhi, the black-haired curse? At his words, Vidhi clenched his fist. Alfalo turned around annoyed. What did you say? The young man continued to taunt him. Don't you want to know what the black-haired curse is? That black-haired guy next to you is an ill omen who caused his own mother's death. That was the last straw. Alfal was about to march over and give him a piece of her mind, but Vidhi stopped her. If you want to live, you should stay away from him. Alfal thought for a moment and then understood. So this guy is a coward. She then leaned over to Emma and said loudly, This guy is so strange. He's clearly the one who's scared, but he's blaming it on Vid's hair and eye color. We should hurry up and go. If we stay around a coward for too long, we might become cowards too. Her words were short, but the insult was sharp. The young man was furious and was about to charge forward, but his attendant stopped him. That seems to be the princess of the Lefest Empire. Alpha looked at Vidhi, who was still standing there stunned. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Vidhi watched her walk away, then followed after her, his face flushing. The group walked on, laughing and joking. Just then, Alfalo noticed Vidhi walking silently beside her. What's wrong? Vidhi hesitated. Aren't you afraid that I am the black-haired curse and will bring you bad luck? Alfal thought for a moment. Just because you were born with black hair, they think you're an ill omen? Isn't that the case? Alfal thought to herself. If that's the reason, then the world I came from must be full of bad omens. The novel didn't say much about Vidhi after Alfal had him sent back to his country. Given this world's prejudice against black hair, if he went back, oh, that's too tragic to even imagine. Alfal stood in front of Vidhi and told him to lower his head. Then she gently stroked his hair. It's okay. They're just a bunch of cowards who judge people by their looks. If they say you're a bad omen because you have black hair, then by that logic, wouldn't golden-haired Emma be an angel and silver-haired Paglet be an archangel? Emma laughed at Alpha's description. You can't describe people like that. Huglet then asked, then what would that make Princess Alphal with her white hair? She's my goddess of luck. Viddy interjected. The air was suddenly thick with the sweet scent of romance. I've seen enough. I ship it. Emma couldn't help but tease the two of them, and they both blushed and turned away. Registration is about to start. We should hurry, Viddy said. As Viddy ran ahead, she couldn't help but touch her own hot cheeks, her heart fluttering. Oh my God, what was I just doing? I think my heart just skipped a beat. After filling out their registration forms, the group chatted as they walked toward the dorms. When they reached a fork in the road, they had to part ways. Alphalo and Viddy had signed up for the Warrior Academy. While Emma and Paglet were in the Mage Academy, Alphalo opened her dorm room door and was delighted to see a familiar face. But before she could get excited, a voice from the side interrupted. Is this that useless princess? She turned to see a short-haired girl holding a tube of lipstick frowning at her. Miphila Blair snapped. The girl just shrugged. Am I wrong? She has no magic. What is she if not useless? Alphalo looked at her and said, seriously, having no magic just means I can't learn magic. I can still learn swordsmanship. I don't think swordsmanship requires much magic, right? Seeing the determination in Alpha's eyes, the girl didn't say anything more and introduced herself. Mala Mesto. She then pointed to the girl beside her. And this is Merilia. The next day at the new student assembly, everyone was bored as they listened to the person on stage drone on. Viddy, who was being ostracized by his roommates because of his ominous black hair, ended up sitting with Alphalo and her friends. Luckily, her roommates didn't seem to care about Vid's hair color. After the speaker on stage finished, the new student representative from the Mage Academy took the stage. A golden-haired figure walked to the podium. Hello everyone. I'm the new student representative from the Mage Academy, Emma Glora Uros. Alphalo watched Emma on stage and couldn't help but sigh. As expected of the heroine, she's the center of attention no matter where she goes. Just then Blair suddenly said she had to leave. Mifala yawned impatiently. How much longer is this going to take? Viddy checked the schedule. It should be over after the Warrior Academy representative speaks. Just then it was the Warrior Academy's turn. And the person who walked on stage surprised everyone. It was Blair. After the new student assembly finally ended, Mafala complained. We all agreed to be slackers together, but you went and became a top student behind our backs. The world is so unfair, Blair said awkwardly. I thought you all knew. My last name is Astor, after all, as in General Astor. In the novel, General Astor was a renowned warrior, and his children had all inherited his talents. She had known who Blair was when they first met, but she never expected her to be this impressive. Just then Viddy asked, what class are you guys in? Everyone checked their cards. Viddy, Blair and Merilia were all in class A, while Alphalo and Mafala were in class F. The air instantly fell silent. We're all in the same dorm. Why am I in the loser class with this girl? Anostin Academy was known not only for its excellent faculty, but also for its fierce competition. Class A was for the top students, B for the elite, C for advanced, D for intermediate, E for basic. And finally, there was the loser class, Class F, located on a remote hillside far from the city. Miala clutched her head in frustration. I'm a noble lady. I have to take classes in a place like this. You've got to be kidding me. Alpha patted her on the shoulder comfortingly. I'm a princess and I'm in this class too. Their eyes met and they both understood. There was only one thing to do, accept their fate. Just then, a voice came from behind them. Hello, my dear loser, young masters and ladies. Everyone turned to see a man with an eye patch looking at them playfully. I am your homeroom teacher, Billy Porter, Aliva. The students, however, just glared at him. Even though Class F was known as the loser class, saying it so bluntly was a good way to make enemies of everyone. Mela stormed over to him. What did you say? Alphal quickly grabbed her. The man just smiled. Did I say something wrong? You're all just a bunch of untalented, weak, unwanted failures. Seeing their defiant faces, he continued. If you want to prove me wrong, then start by running to the top of this mountain. That will be your first lesson. Looking at the mountain peak that seemed to touch the clouds, everyone hesitated. Can we really do this? Mala clenched her fists. We have to. I'm not going to be looked down on by some guy. Just then, a voice came through their communication devices. My dear useless students, whether you're truly hopeless or just barely salvageable depends on whether you can retrieve your student IDs from the top of the mountain. By the way, your student ID is your path to everything in this academy. Without it, you might not be able to survive here. The atmosphere instantly grew tense. Alpha looked at the group worriedly. Can a team like this really make it to the top? The test began and everyone started running toward the summit. They helped each other climb up the mountainside. Just then a cry came from the side. Alfalo went over and saw a girl sitting on the ground with a sprained ankle. Does anyone know healing magic? Alfalo called out. After the girl's ankle was healed, Alfalo and Mufila helped her up. But the girl suddenly burst into tears. I can't do this anymore. So what if I'm useless? I am useless. So what? Mufala slapped the girl across the face and looked at her coldly. Say that again. Alfalo quickly pulled her back. Mufala continued. If you're content with being useless, then be useless for the rest of your life. With that, she turned and left. Alfalo watched Malo's back, remembering this part of the novel. Alfalo and Mafala had a big fight, and she became friends with a girl named Shirley. In the end, when the emperor was murdered, Shirley betrayed Alfalo and identified her as the killer. In a side story about Mafala, it was mentioned why she was so angry. As the second daughter of the Mevito family, Mifila, despite her arrogant and willful appearance, actually had very little magic. She wasn't as capable as her older sister or as well liked as her younger sister. Stuck in the middle, she was gradually neglected. To get attention, she slowly became the arrogant and unreasonable person she was now. Thinking about it, Mafala's experience and personality were quite similar to Alfalo's. After Emma was brought back, Alfalo was inferior to her slum-raised sister in every way and was gradually neglected. The word they both heard the most and hated the most was useless. Alfalo walked over to Shirley and said seriously, do you know what makes someone truly useless? It's when they believe they're useless themselves. With that, without waiting for a reaction, she ran after Mtfala. What are you doing here? Alfalo stretched. I'm here to try not to be useless. The two of them then continued to run toward the summit. Before long, the rest of the class slowly caught up. In this classroom, there were many people like Alfo and Mfala. But none of them were content to be called useless by others. They had only one goal in sight, the summit. Alfalo and Mfala finally reached the top, panting for breath. The high peak was bathed in a golden glow from the clouds. It's beautiful, Alfalo couldn't help but say. Just then, she noticed their classmates still struggling to climb up. Maybe Mela's slap had worked. One by one, people were getting back on their feet. Maybe their talents were poor. Maybe their personalities were unlikable. But they all had their own resolve. The climb might be hard, but no matter what, they would all reach the top. After the test, classes officially began. After morning classes, Alfalo and Mifila planned to go to the cafeteria for lunch. On the way, Shirley was sneakily following them. Ever since the test, it seemed Shirley had developed some feelings for Mufala. Just then Shirley, her face red, approached and asked Mufala, do you want to have lunch together? Mufala laughed awkwardly. Sorry, I'm having lunch with my roommates. Shirley watched the two of them leave, a creepy smile on her face. She just smiled at me. After getting their food, they ran into Emma, who was also in the cafeteria, and joined her. Emma enthusiastically introduced her roommates. This is Cora, Ace, and Felina. Alo greeted them politely. Just then Ace suddenly said, I know you. You're that famous, powerless. Hearing this, Vid's expression instantly darkened and Mafala shot up angrily. What did you say? Ace quickly explained. I didn't mean any offense. It's just what everyone says. Cora also tried to smooth things over. I apologize. Ace can be a bit blunt. Alfal waved her hand, saying it was fine. Just then Emma took out a box and gave it to Alfalo. These are some cookies I made in baking class. They're for you. She then took out a scroll. I made this in class too. It might not be as good as the ones sold in stores though. Alfalo held the items, looking at Emma with gratitude. Just then, a green tea manipulative comment floated through the air. Sister Emma is so nice to Alfal. I begged for those cookies for so long and didn't get any. And a scroll made by Sister Emma herself. Not like me who gets told to make my own. Alfalo looked at her and laughed awkwardly. What's with that catty tone? But whatever. The fact that she had no magic wasn't a secret. Besides, this was from the heroine, the future great mage. It would be a waste not to take it. After lunch, the group chatted as they walked out. Just then, Alpha accidentally bumped into someone, and the remaining soup in her tray splattered onto the person. She quickly apologized. The woman in front of her snapped her fingers, and the stain on her clothes vanished instantly. She then looked at Alfalo coldly. Name, class. Emma recognized the woman and whispered in Alfalo's ear. Oh no, this is our magic teacher, Maras. She hates people with low magic. Alpha's heart sank. I'm doomed. She cautiously gave her name in class. Maras repeated her name softly. The rumored powerless, useless princess. Alpha mumbled. That's what the rumors say. Mafala was about to step forward angrily, but Blair stopped her. That's a teacher. If you offend her, your life and her class will be miserable. Hearing Alfalo's words, Mariah said, At least you're self aware. But Alfalo said, Seriously, I know I don't have any talent for magic, but I will work hard in martial arts. The two of them stared at each other for a moment before Maras turned and left, leaving behind one last comment. I hope so. After the teacher left, Mifila complained, I can't believe a school like this has a teacher who judges people by their abilities. In class, she's always been strange to the students who don't do well. Her reaction to Alfalo was actually pretty good. At least there was no punishment. Alpha laughed awkwardly. So I should be grateful. Just then Merilia quietly said, There are many people like that. Mifila didn't hear her and asked her to repeat herself. Merilia just waved her hand, saying it was nothing. Speaking of which, Merilia, you're amazing. You're even better at martial arts than the nobles who have been training since they were kids. Mifila easily linked arms with her. Why don't you teach me too? Merilia replied calmly. I'm not as amazing as you say. It's just a way to survive. Back at the dorm after getting ready for bed, Blair asked, I heard you guys spend the whole day climbing a mountain. At the mention of this, Mafala was instantly wide awake. She shot up in bed and started ranting. You have no idea how crazy that teacher is. He called us all useless and made us climb the back mountain. My legs are killing me. But you were still the first one to reach the top, Mafala said proudly. Of course. Who do you think I am? Merilia suddenly asked. What class do you have tomorrow? It's not more mountain climbing, is it? The two of them polled. Probably not, right? After chatting for a bit, they said good night and went to sleep. Just then, the words of teacher Billy and the teacher she met at lunch, Maras, flashed through Alfalo's mind, and her eyes snapped open. After making sure the other three were asleep, she took a necklace from under her pillow and tiptoed out of the dorm. In the darkness, Blair suddenly opened her eyes and quietly watched Alfalo leave. Alfalo went to a secluded area of the academy, took out the necklace, and remembered what Neil had said. For your safety, Your Highness, I have modified this necklace into a magic tool that will allow you to use magic freely. I have also arranged for a teacher to instruct you. In the middle of the night, Alfo huddled in a corner, shivering. I hope that teacher comes tonight or I'm going to freeze to death. Just then a voice came from nearby. Then you can stop waiting. That teacher has already frozen to death. A figure descended from the sky and suddenly appeared in front of Alfalo. Looking closely, she saw it was the same teacher she had met at lunch. Looking at the person in front of her, Alfalo asked awkwardly, The teacher who's supposed to instruct me, it's not you, is it? Marius crossed her arms. What, you're not satisfied? Alfalo quickly waved her hands. Of course not. I just didn't expect the person who was so cold to me at lunch to be my teacher at night. The words of her friend Ace flashed through her mind and she shivered. Is she going to use this as an opportunity to punish me? In her mind, the teacher's image instantly transformed into a demon holding a long whip. Just then, Maras cut through her thoughts. What are you imagining? Are all of Lord Tammany's people this strange? Alfalo scratched her head awkwardly. No, I just didn't expect the teacher Neil mentioned to be you. Maras, however, completely missed the point. Lord Neil. Good heavens, I've never even dared to call him by his first name so intimately. Alpha looked at Maras, who was practically radiating a dark aura, and couldn't help but ask, Are you okay, teacher? But Maras raised her magic staff and demanded menacingly, Tell me, what is your relationship with Lord Neil? Alfal held up her hands and surrendered. Calm down. Neil is just my butler. Maras repeated the word butler, and her mind conjured up a strange image. She couldn't help but cover her face shyly. Oh my, can I experience this for free? Alfalo cut her off, deadpan. Please don't imagine strange things. Neil is just a normal butler. Marius cleared her throat and said seriously, I know. Alpha looked at her skeptically. Yeah, right. Finally, they got back on topic. You can call me Maras. Lord Neil sent me to teach you magic. I will be here every Monday, Thursday, and Sunday at 1 o'clock in the morning. Then her focus shifted again. You and Lord Neil really don't have that kind of relationship. Alfalo quickly waved her hands, insisting they didn't, while silently lamenting, Neil, why did you have to send your biggest fan to be my teacher? Finally, the lesson began. Alfal closed her eyes and focused on the magic fluctuations around her. In the quiet surroundings, 4 different colored flames appeared. Just then, Maras's voice came from beside her. Find the brightest flame and tell me what color it is. Alfalo hesitated. Who? Purple. Try to control that magic and make it appear in your hand. Alfalo concentrated and the necklace began to glow. A ball of purple flame suddenly appeared in her palm. Her eyes lit up as she looked at it. I did it. Marius nodded in approval. You have some talent. Alfo smiled. It's all thanks to the necklace Neil gave me. Marius looked proud. Of course, anything from Neil is bound to be good. The way she refers to him has changed. Alfo wondered what their relationship was. How did you and Neil meet teacher Maras? Marius looked shy. That's a long story. Back when I was a new student at the academy, but before she could get 2 sentences out, Alfo ruthlessly cut her off. If it's a long story, then please make it short, Maria spouted. It was during the academy trial. You'll have one of those in the future too. She then recalled with a dreamy, shy expression. At that time, Lord Neil descended from the sky. Alfalo, not wanting to hear it, quickly interrupted her. Teacher, I have summoned the magic. What's next? By the time the lesson was over, Alfalo was exhausted and sitting on the ground. Finally, it's over. For someone with no foundation, her control over magic was actually pretty good. Alfo flopped onto her back. This is great. Just then, Maria tossed the book next to her. These are some basic spells. Read it. With a flick of her magic, she vanished, leaving behind only her voice. 3 days from now, 1 o'clock in the morning, right here. In the morning, after being up for most of the night, Alfalo reluctantly got out of bed and staggered toward the bathroom. Miffel looked at her confused. Didn't we go to bed at the same time? Why is she so tired? Blair, who knew the truth but didn't say anything, just said, maybe she's just not used to the bed. As they were talking, Alfalo walked straight into the door. I think it's more than just not being used to the bed. During class, Mfala asked Alfalo with concern, Are you really okay? You look terrible this morning. Alfalo scratched her head awkwardly. I probably did look pretty bad. Teacher Morias is so strict. She didn't let me go back until 4 in the morning. Malo yawned. Whatever. I am tired too. Keep an eye out for me. I'm going to take a nap. Alfalo, however, secretly opened the magic book Maras had given her. All magic started with the basics. Advanced spells were just variations of basic ones. If she wanted to learn advanced magic, she had to start from the beginning. Alright, let's start here. In Maurice's room, the communication crystal on her desk suddenly lit up and Neil's image appeared. You're suddenly contacting me with the communication crystal, senior. Did you miss me? Neil sounded tired. Be serious. I'm here to ask about the princess's situation. You know I like you, yet you asked me to be the teacher for your precious princess. Aren't you afraid I'll get jealous? Neil sighed. You were a magic genius at the academy and the youngest grand mage. The fewer people who know about the princess learning magic, the better. How is she doing? Maria thought for a moment. She's not bad. She's learning faster than most people. She might even be a genius in the future. Meanwhile, after meeting teacher Maras, Alfilo began a grueling routine of enduring teacher Billy Porter's demonic training during the day and teacher Maras's demonic training at night. It was exhausting but fulfilling. One night, as Alfalo was practicing magic alone, she heard a faint sound from nearby. She quickly extinguished the flame and looked toward the source of the noise. To her surprise, Vidhi stepped out from behind a pillar. He walked over to her. So, your highness can actually use magic. Alfalo laughed awkwardly. You could say that. She couldn't help but wonder, what's Vidhi doing here so late at night? It was a good thing teacher Maras had already left. She had been so absorbed in her practice that she hadn't noticed she had stepped outside the protective barrier. Just then, Vidhi noticed the necklace around her neck. If your highness is going to be practicing alone every night, then perhaps I could help you with your martial arts training as well. Alfalo looked at him in pleasant surprise. Really? Won't it be too much trouble for you? It is my honor to serve you, your highness. Besides, weren't you just complaining about your slow progress in martial arts? Alfal remembered a time she had casually complained to Vidhi. She had just been venting, but he had actually taken it to heart. Alf smiled. In that case, I'll be in your care, teacher Vidhi. From then on, Alfalo began to train with Vidhi and her martial arts skills improved significantly. Although the results were obvious, it was incredibly draining, reminding her of her past life when she had to study countless subjects. Seeing Alpha's listless state, Blair asked with concern, Are you okay? Mela looked annoyed. What could be wrong with her? We all agreed to be slackers, but she's secretly working hard behind our backs. Alfo laughed awkwardly. It was an accident. That night, Alfalo and Vidhi continued their martial arts training. Seeing her progress, Vidhi said, Your Highness's martial arts foundation is solid now. We can move on to the next stage of training. He then summoned a ball of black flame in his palm. Since you can use magic, you can infuse it into your martial arts techniques. With that, he shot the flame out, leaving a black scorch mark on a tree. Alfal watched in amazement. Wow, you can do that! Vidhi looked at her. You can try it, your highness. Alpha, a purple magic circle appeared in front of her palm and she shot it at the same tree, leaving a purple mark below the black one. She looked at her hand in delight. So you can. He only snapped out of it when Alfalo called his name loudly. Your highness, the necklace around your neck. Alfalo hamduk lagaye. This, it's a gift from Meal. Seeing Vid's dazed expression, she thought to herself, did he figure something out? She remembered what Neil had told her. To prevent others from coveting it, you must never tell anyone about this necklace's function, your highness. Vidya, it would be better if you wore it underneath your clothes from now on. Seeing Vid's handsome face up close, Alfo clutched her chest and turned away shyly. I understand. Her heart was racing. What's wrong with me? The two of them then began to practice infusing magic into their martial arts. By the time they finished, Alfalo was exhausted and sitting on the ground. Finally, it's over. All this martial arts and magic is making my head spin. Vidya softly comforted her. Getting stronger is never easy. The ground is cold. You should get up. He then held out his hand and pulled her to her feet. Due to the momentum, Alfalo accidentally stumbled into his arms. At such a close distance, both of their hearts seemed to stop for a moment, then began to pound like a drum. Just then, Vid's expression grew serious. A pattern of a magic circle had appeared in Alfalo's eyes. Was that a seal? The next day in class, Alfalo was staring at her book, her mind elsewhere. Viddi is smart. He must have noticed something that day to have said that. Just then, Mela, who was looking at Alfal's textbook, grinned mischievously. Oh my, whose name is that? Alfal then realized she had unconsciously written Vid's name. She quickly covered it up, her face flushing red. Don't get. Oh, thinking about someone and writing that someone's name. Alfalo waved her hands frantically, but it was no use. She was caught. Alpho had been searching the library for a while, but all the books were unrelated to seals. She lowered her head in disappointment. Why can't I find what I'm looking for? As she turned, she accidentally bumped into someone. As luck would have it, it was Vidhi. Looking for books about seals, Your Highness? Alfalo lowered her eyes nervously. Oh no, he found out, Vidhi sighed. You don't have to be nervous, Your Highness. I'll help you look. I was. After how I treated you, Vidhi gently touched her cheek. Because I trust the person you are now. Alpha was still thinking about that moment when Mifila's voice snapped her out of it. What are you thinking about? I called you so many times. Do you want to come with us to Themis Club recruitment fair? Seeing Alf's confused look, Merilia handed her a flyer. Looking at the strange slogans on it, Alpha thought, what is this? Is anyone actually going to join these clubs? Blair, we got handed a ton of flyers. Mafala excitedly threw her arm around Alfal's shoulder. So, let's go. With so many clubs, it's bound to be fun. But Alfalo looked troubled. I have plans later, so I can't go. Me looked at her with a mischievous, gossipy grin. A date? Alfalo deadpanned. Don't be ridiculous. It's not. She then hurried away. Anyway, you guys go ahead. I have something to do, so I'm leaving. Malo watched her go, a thoughtful look on her face. Something's definitely up. The three of them then secretly followed Alfalo. Before long, Vidhi came into view. Mafala instantly jumped up in excitement, completely forgetting they were supposed to be hiding. I knew it! My ship is real! When Vidhi turned to look, there was no one there. The three of them held their breath, trembling in the bushes. Was close. We almost got caught. Over the next few days, Alfalo read many books about seals, but none of them were related to the one on her. Just then, Vidhi walked over with a stack of books. Looking at the towering pile, Alpho slumped over the table in defeat. There are still so many. Although she was fairly certain her mother's seal was a type from the church. Ever since she started learning magic, she had sensed another unknown restriction on top of it. A seal locked away power, making it impossible to sense. While a restriction allowed one to sense the power, but not use it. Alfal suddenly thought of the astrologer she had met. He looked just like Paglet, but their personalities were completely different. Paglet had said they knew each other. Maybe that could be a clue. As Alfalo was engrossed in a book, she heard a sound from behind her. She ran over to find that Vidhi had accidentally triggered a switch, revealing a secret room. Looking at the dark passage, they decided to go down and investigate. Vidhi rolled up his sleeve, touched a button on his shirt, and summoned his sword. Please stay behind me, Your Highness. Alpho looked at the button on Vid's shirt curiously. Is that a magic tool too? Magic tools were items modified by magic. They could be jewelry or weapons, and their effects varied greatly from deadly weapons to powerful amplifiers. However, mages who could modify items were rare, making magic tools incredibly valuable. And the most valuable of all were storage-type magic tools. As Alf was thinking, they quickly reached the secret room. Looking at the empty surroundings, she guessed, according to the laws of novels. A secret room like this either holds a terrifying monster or some rare treasure, and these places always have countless traps. Alfalo took a gold coin from a pocket and tossed it forward. It was instantly incinerated by a burst of flames. There really are traps. It seems reading all those novels paid off. Vidya looked at the scene before him and tightened his grip on his sword. Please stay close to me for the rest of the way. Your Highness looked at Vidhi's back and couldn't help but swoon. Oh no, he's so handsome. Vidhi kept Alfalo behind him as he cautiously moved forward. Suddenly, a volley of arrows shot toward them. Vidhi quickly used magic to block them with his sword, then levitated the sword and scooped Alfalo up, running forward. Just then, Alfalo saw another wave of arrows coming from behind and quickly warned him. Vidhi immediately turned, deflected the arrows, and retreated with Alfalo in his arms. When everything was calm again, he put her down. Setting up traps like this means whatever is in here is not simple. She looked up at him. She never knew Vidhi was so powerful. Was that black flame his magic? She had never seen black magic before. Vidhi froze for a moment, then lowered his eyes, hiding his emotions. But it is, after all, the ominous dark magic. Most people on the continent were born with some amount of magic, commonly the natural elements, but also mutated magic like lightning and ice. Rarer was light attribute magic, also known as divine power. And dark magic was even rarer than divine power, the only force that could rival it. Alfal muttered to herself, "No wonder he's so strong." She knew she would likely have to confront the church in the future, so she smiled brightly at Viddy. "Let's go. With you protecting me, I feel completely safe." The two of them then continued deeper into the secret room. Before long, they reached the end. Alfo leaned against the wall, panting. "There are way too many traps in this room." Viddy took off his jacket and draped it over her. "Floor is cold. Be careful not to catch a chill." Seeing his shy, blushing face, Alfal couldn't help but smile. "But after all that, I've realized how weak I really am." "I couldn't help at all. We only survived because of you. I'm so weak." Vidhi frantically tried to comfort her. "You've been working very hard, Your Highness. There are just too many traps here. There must be something important inside." Hearing this, Alpho suddenly remembered that the original novel mentioned a forbidden grimoire hidden in the academy. The church had been searching for it for years but had never found it. Maybe it was hidden somewhere in this secret room. As she was thinking, her hand accidentally rested on a particular floor tile, and a secret door suddenly opened behind her. Caught off guard, she fell backward. Vidhi quickly reached out and grabbed her wrist, then twisted around to shield her with his own body as they fell, cushioning her fall. Alfalo sat up, her head spinning, only to realize she was sitting directly on top of Vidhi. She instantly scrambled off him and sat to the side, trying to act calm, but inside she was screaming. What do you say in a situation this awkward? I'm so embarrassed I could dig a hole and live in it. But that brief moment, she thought, she felt his chest muscles. He seemed to be in really good shape. It's a shame she didn't get to properly appreciate it. Just then, Vidhi moved closer, interrupting her thoughts. Your Highness, I think we are trapped. Alfado looked around. They were surrounded by high walls with no seams. I must have gotten too excited and accidentally touched a trap, which is why we fell in here. We should look for an exit. They searched for a long time but found nothing. Alfal flopped onto the ground in defeat. There's nothing here. We leaned against the wall. Let's rest for a bit and think of a plan. But Alfal suddenly started talking. Actually, if I hadn't said we should go into the secret room, we wouldn't be trapped here, right? If I was stronger, you wouldn't have had to work so hard to protect me, right? If I hadn't touched that trap, we wouldn't have fallen down here. Seeing her slowly lose her senses, her expression becoming frantic, Viddy quickly grabbed her shoulders. Your Highness, you're not acting right. It's all because of me that we are trapped here waiting to die. If it wasn't for me, we sensed a trace of dark magic. When had she been affected by it? Although dark magic could be absorbed, Viddy gritted his teeth, and after a moment of hesitation, he seemed to make up his mind. Forgive me, Your Highness. He then leaned in and kissed her. It felt as if all sound had disappeared, leaving only the deafening pound of her own heart. After he had absorbed all the dark magic from her body, Alpha's eyes cleared, and then she went limp and fainted. Viddy quickly caught her. A short while later, Alfalo woke from her coma, asking Viddy in a daze, "What happened to me?" Vidya explained, "You were corrupted by dark magic and almost took your own life." Alfalo was shocked and clutched her chest in fear. I actually had suicidal thoughts. Dark magic was said to have the power to bewitch people and bring out their darkest thoughts. She shivered. It was terrifying. Did you pull me out of it? Hearing this, Viddy stiffened and quietly replied, Dark magic can absorb dark magic. Alfalo then understood. But seeing Vid's beet red face, she couldn't help but wonder, is absorbing magic that difficult? Why is his face so red? We thought back to what had just happened and hesitantly asked, Do you remember what happened before? But Alfal just looked at him blankly. Before, did something happen? I don't remember. A complicated emotion washed over Viddy. He didn't know whether to be relieved or disappointed. Alpho suddenly shot up and started anxiously circling him. Did I do something bad to you when I was corrupted? Did I hit you? Are you hurt? We gently took a hand to calm her down. You're overthinking it, Your Highness. I'm fine. The dark magic here has dissipated. The exit should appear soon. As he spoke, a pedestal suddenly rose from the floor behind them. When everything was calm again, Alfalo cautiously opened her eyes and saw the newly appeared pedestal with a book on it. Vidhi guessed that this was what the secret room was protecting. Could this be the forbidden grimoire? The legendary book said to contain all the magic on the continent. Whoever possesses it can rule the world. Vidhi took the grimoire, flipped through it, and then excitedly grabbed Alfalo's hand. Your Highness, there's a high chance this book has a way to break the seal on you. But Alfal's attention was on their tightly clasped hands. They both quickly let go, turning away to hide their pounding hearts. Vitti's face was bright red and he was annoyed at himself. Damn it, what was I just doing? I hope Her Highness didn't get the wrong idea. He cautiously peeked at Alfalo, but his gaze involuntarily drifted to her soft pink lips. He slapped himself on the head. Get a grip. What am I thinking? Stop it! Alfo peeked out from behind him. Are you okay? V composed himself and turned back, trying to act calm. I'm fine, Your Highness. I just looked through this book. It's full of magic-related things, even ancient spells. If we take this back, we'll be able to break the seal on you in no time. Alfal thought about it. A grimoire containing all the magic on the continent would surely have information about magic seals. But would the academy let them take it? Whatever, I'll think about that later. For now, I need to find a way to break this seal. Just then a loud rumbling sound echoed through the room. Before they could react, the wall suddenly crumbled, creating a large hole. An old white-haired man in a mage's robe walked in. Princess Alfalo, are you all right? Alfal recognized the man and bowed respectfully. Headmaster, thank you for your concern. I am fine. The headmaster smiled. I am glad to hear it. But while the headmaster was easygoing, the teachers were not. Billy Potter stormed over and scolded Alfalo. You've gotten bold, haven't you? Daring to go into a place you know nothing about. Maras also grabbed Viddi by the ear and lectured him. As the princess's personal guard, you went along with her foolishness. The headmaster quickly intervened. As long as the children are safe, Your Highness, please don't wander into secret rooms like this again. His tone then shifted. This room is full of trap. Did you encounter anything strange? For example, a book that suddenly appeared. Vidhi gently tugged on Alfal's sleeve and stepped forward. We did not see anything of the sort. Al then noticed that the book that had been in her hand was gone. Since everyone wanted it, it was better to keep it a secret. This room was empty. We didn't see any strange books. That's good. Let's go now. And don't accidentally wander in here again. With that, he led everyone out. That night, after her lesson with Maras, the teacher once again sternly warned her. From now on, do not enter places you don't know anything about. Alfalo quickly nodded in agreement. After Maras left, Vidhi emerged from the side and hesitantly said he had something to tell her. He then set up a barrier around them that blocked both sight and sound. Seeing this, Alfal wondered, is he about to tell me some big secret? Vidhi sighed, touched the storage tool on his clothes and pulled out the forbidden grimoire. Alfal's eyes widened in disbelief. How did you get this out? Wasn't it in the secret room? Did you go back in? Vidhi explained that he had secretly hidden it in his storage tool before the headmaster and the others arrived. He then handed the grimoire to Alfo. Try it, Your Highness. Alfo took the grimoire, her heart pounding. The legendary book that contained all the magic on the continent. Could it really break the seal on her? But even if there was only a sliver of hope, she had to try. Alfalo opened the book and instantly all sorts of spells floated out of it. She carefully searched and finally found the section on sealing magic. Before she could touch it, the grimoire suddenly started to shake violently and then flew into the air. Vidhi quickly summoned his sword and stood in front of her. The grimoire hovered for a moment, then shot toward them. Vidhi raised his sword to block it, but the book passed right through it and with a flash of golden light entered Alfalo's body. Alfalo collapsed to the ground weak. When she came to her senses, she looked at herself in horror. What happened? Did it just fly into my body? They looked at each other and Alfalo burst into tears. It's over. I'm going to die again. After calming down, Alfalo closed her eyes and tried to sense the grimoire inside her. But there was no response. That's strange. What just happened should have been the grimoire acknowledging you as its master. Magical items and treasures that choose their own masters usually have their own consciousness. You should be able to sense the book's spirit, Vidhi guessed. Could it be that it wasn't acknowledging a master but looking for a vessel? Powerful magic tools and treasures, besides acknowledging a master, could also develop a spirit. When they were too powerful and could cause harm, they would seek a vessel to store their magic and prevent it from leaking out. Understanding this, Alpha's face fell. So I'm just a tool. The next day, as soon as Alfalo's class ended, she heard Vidhi's voice behind her. Mala playfully nudged her. Oh, looks like someone's here to pick you up. Go on, we won't interrupt your date. Alfalo froze, then quickly grabbed Vidhi and pulled him away. What's going on with that book? I tried calling out to it all last night, but no spirit appeared. She finally gave up. Vidhi thought for a moment. I did some research last night. Some books, if damaged, can cause their spirits to be affected. There are also cases where the spirit is injured. Although the book itself is intact, the magic attached to it will be dim. The grimoire we saw was complete, but the magic on it should have been much stronger. Alfal guessed. So the book's spirit itself was injured, and it chose me as a vessel to recover. So as long as the spirit heals, we'll be able to meet it, and then we'll be able to find out what I need to know. Vidhi nodded. That should be it. The two of them chatted as they walked, and at a corner, Alfalo accidentally bumped into someone again. Vidya quickly steadied her. Before they could react, the person yelled, "Who was it that wasn't looking where they were going?" and bumped into me. When he saw the girl in Vid's arms, he sneered. Well, if it isn't the useless princess of the Lephist Empire. Alfalo looked at him puzzled. This guy looks familiar, but I can't remember from where. It seems spending time with Vidhi has made you as pathetic as he is. Hearing this, Alpha finally remembered. It was the coward she had met at the school gate. Vid's younger brother, the fourth prince of the Sereni kingdom, Vilno Seplo. The original novel didn't mention much about the neighboring kingdom of Sereni, only that it had 7 princes and Vidya was the third. This Vilno was supposedly the fourth, but hated being called the fourth prince because it made him feel like he was always second to Vidhi. Vilno's lackeys joined in the mockery. A princess abandoning magic to learn some crude martial arts. What's a girl doing learning martial arts anyway? Alpha looked at them speechless. What nonsense are they spouting? Are these guys for real? Y's voice was low as he warned Vilno, his fists clenched. What? You want to fight? Vilno wagged a finger tauntingly. Fighting on school grounds is a punishable offense. Hearing this, neither of them moved, just stood there facing off. I've long heard that Prince Vilno is quite skilled in magic. It seems you're quite skilled in other areas as well. In gratitude for your care of my younger sister, I'd like to have a little magic spar with you to further our academic exchange. A drop of cold sweat trickled down Vilno's forehead and he quickly declined. Princess Emma, I'm just a Class B student. How could I possibly spar with someone from Class A like you? It's all right. Academic exchange has nothing to do with class rank. As she spoke, a ball of golden flame formed in her palm. Just as she was about to attack, Alfalo interrupted her. This is something I have to do myself to make them truly submit. Vilno scoffed. Make us submit with your weak little punches. Vidhi's face darkened. Watch your tone. But Alfalo stopped him. It's fine. Don't interfere. She then cracked her knuckles. All right then. As you wish. I'll hit you with my little punches. Hearing this, the three of them burst out laughing. Yeah, hurry up and hit us with your cute little punches. Alfalo walked up to Vilno, clenched her fist, took a step back, held her breath, and threw a punch right at his chest, sending him flying. Everyone watched in shock, their jaws on the floor. Alpha looked at Vilno with a sarcastic tone. Dear, I didn't realize you were so fragile. Vilno's lackey helped him up and they scured away. But not before he turned back to shout, You just wait! I'll be back. Alpha watched them flee. Why are you stealing the big bad wolf's line? But it was a good thing she had Vid's support, which gave her the confidence to face these people. Are you okay? What they said was too much, Emma said, her eyes full of concern. Alphal took Emma's hand. I'm fine now. Even though I'm not learning magic, I have martial arts to protect myself. She then flexed her small bicep. Just then, Vidhi reminded Alphalo that it was lunchtime. The two of them then bid farewell to Emma and Paglet. Emma, however, watched them leave, a thoughtful look on her face. When Alphalo got back to her dorm, she opened the door to see Mafala sitting in a chair, radiating a dark aura and glaring at her. You promised to go to the club fair with me, but you secretly went on a date instead. Alpho cautiously apologized. I'm sorry. I'll definitely go with you this time. Besides, who goes on a date in a secret room in the library? Miles' eyes widened. Now, right now. She then dragged Alpha out the door. When they got to the Academy Plaza, Mfala was as excited as a puppy off its leash, looking at and touching everything. Alfalo was grateful she had eaten lunch. Just then, Mfala noticed a girl handing out flyers. Isn't that Marilia? Is she helping a club promote itself? Did she already join a club? The two of them went over to say hello. Marilia ran over excitedly. What are you guys doing here? Mifala turned away haughtily. You secretly joined a club without telling us, Maria quickly explained. It was an accident. Mala stared at her for a moment. Fine, I don't even need to ask. Knowing you, you probably couldn't refuse their begging. Just then, a voice came from behind them. Marilia, are these new members you've recruited? Hearing the voice, Marilia frantically tried to push the two of them away. You guys have to go. This club isn't for you. But before they could leave, a cheerful, golden-haired young man jumped out. Aha! Marilia has finally brought us two new members. We have to give them a proper welcome. Maria quickly explained. President, these are my roommates, not new members. But the president didn't care. He walked over and invited them. Friends, join our blood-soaked club. Although we are a club made up of commoners, we study swordsmanship and train ourselves so that one day we can surpass those royals and nobles. But Alphal just laughed awkwardly. Sorry, we are royals and nobles. Hearing this, the president was so dejected, he squatted in a corner and started drawing circles on the ground. Marilia took the opportunity to lead the two of them away. The club doesn't accept royals or nobles, which is why I said it's not for you. You should check out some other clubs. So the two of them went to look at other clubs. Just then, one of them caught Mifela's attention. Seeing the elegant and beautiful people in the club chatting with each other, Mifela declared excitedly, I am joining this ladies' club. It looks like it suits me perfectly. Before Alpho could stop her, she had already blended in with the club. I'm a member of this club now, Alphal. You can go have fun by yourself. Alf looked at her speechless. I can't believe she just abandoned me like that. With Mela gone, Alpha had to wander around and look at other clubs by herself. Just then, a shabby, deserted club booth caught her eye. The sign read, Special Magic Research Club. She curiously went over and asked, what does special magic mean? The club president, Alua, opened his sleepy eyes and groggy handed her a flyer. Special magic is all magic outside of the conventional types. Barriers, seals, beast taming, contracts, these unconventional types of magic are considered special magic, and they are what we study. Looking at the flyer, Alphal thought, this flyer is so ugly. Is anyone actually going to join? Seeing magic was also a special magic. Maybe this club would have some clues about the seal on her. She might as well check it out. She could always quit if she didn't like it. So Alphalo asked, what do I need to do to join the club? Hearing this, Ila shot to his feet. Join which club? Our club? Alphalo was startled by his reaction and timidly asked, Can I not join? But to her surprise, Elua got so excited, he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Alphalo stared at him in horror. Are you okay? Elua explained. I do this whenever I get excited. It's fine, it's normal. Al deadpanned. Normal, my foot. He then immediately got her the sign-up forms. Report to the address on this form tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Alfal held the form, feeling helpless. I feel like I've walked into a trap and it's not going to be easy to get out of. The next day, Alfalo went to the address on the form. Looking at the dilapidated and deserted surroundings, she was speechless. This place looks even more rundown than the Class F classroom. It's even a little creepy. As she was thinking, the door behind her creaked open. When Ela saw her, he ran over excitedly. You actually came! This is great. I've been waiting for you for so long. I was starting to think you weren't coming. Alfala looked at Aloa's teary face and broke into a cold sweat. Isn't it still 10 minutes until 12:30? Alo then enthusiastically pulled her inside. As they entered, a loud pop sound went off. Welcome, new member Alfalo, to the club. Alfalo looked at the banner that read 4th member and couldn't help but ask, are there really only 4 of us in this club? Seeing Ela's smiling confirmation, she froze. It's over. There's no getting out of this now. I have really walked into a huge trap. Ela put his arm around her shoulder and said with determination, it's fine. We may be small, but we are united. Another member explained a bit awkwardly. Don't mind Ela, he's just so excited. Our club was about to be disbanded if we didn't recruit anyone this year. Gino led Alfalo to a seat and explained. The Academy's clubs are required to recruit one new member every year. If a club fails to recruit anyone for 3 consecutive years, the student council will deem it as having no contribution and disband it. But now that you're here, Alfalo, our club doesn't have to worry about that anymore. But another member, East, poured cold water on their excitement. We still have the club assembly 3 months from now to deal with. Alfal was confused. What's the club assembly? It's an exhibition for all the clubs to showcase their achievements to the teachers. The student council and teachers will then allocate the club funds for the year based on each club's performance. Yes, explained with a helpless smile. Our club always gets the least amount of funding, which is why we can never recruit anyone. Those old-timers have no idea what we're researching. Alpha laughed awkwardly. To be honest, I don't really get it either. Afterward, Alpha went to the club's resource room to take a look. The Special Magic Research Club, as its name suggested, was a club that studied magic. The number of books on special magic here far exceeded that of the library. According to Gino, most of these books were brought from Ela's family. Ela possessed a unique magic ability on this continent. Time. He could manipulate a person's perception of time. However, this special ability, besides giving him powerful magic, also left him with a weak constitution. Although he always seemed cheerful, he couldn't escape his fate. This was the reason he founded the Special Magic Research Club in the first place. Alfalo put a book back on the shelf and sighed. Although there were many books on obscure magic here, she still hadn't found any clues about the seal on her. She had, however, found many ways to repair a book's spirit. Recently, she had been able to faintly sense the spirit of the grimoire. She hoped she could repair it soon and finally break the seal. A while later, during a break between classes, as everyone was chatting, Billy Porter suddenly walked to the front of the class, his expression serious. All right, you little brats, congratulations. The annual academy trial will begin in half a month. This year, you will form your own teams with a maximum of 4 members per team. He then gave them a friendly smile. You have half a month. Make it count, Alfal deadpanned. Please don't smile. After class, Mfala excitedly grabbed Alfal's hand. We get to form our own teams. Our whole dorm can be a team. But Alfalo awkwardly declined. Actually, I understood immediately. I get it. You're going to team up with Vidhi. Alfalo cleared her throat. Yeah, I have something to do, so I'm leaving. Malo looked at her teasingly. I know. Go find your Vidhi before someone else snatches him up. She then cheered her on from behind. Go, brave Alfalo. You can do it. Alpha looked around for Vidhi and they soon found each other. By the way, Your Highness, there's something I wanted to talk to you about. Alf said, what a coincidence. I have something I wanted to talk to you about too. I think we're thinking the same thing. They then said in unison, let's team up for the academy trial. After successfully forming a team, they needed to come up with a name. Alfalo took a bite of her creamy pasta and her eyes lit up. How about Team Creamy Pasta? Vidhi thought about it for a moment and readily agreed. Sounds good. Let's go with that. but Alpha was more interested in the pasta. Just as she was about to take another bite, Paglet's voice came from above. Excuse me, do you mind if we join your team? Alphalo suddenly lost her appetite. She had a bad feeling about this. Just then, Emma popped out from behind him. When I heard we could form our own teams, the first person I thought of was you, Alpha. I ran into Paglet on the way here, so we came together. Alpha just laughed awkwardly. According to the laws of novels, if the main characters were involved in a trial, there was bound to be danger. The main characters could be shot full of arrows and still be fine, but a cannon fodder character could die from a scratch on the arm.